Mabuhay, Kamustika, welcome. How are you? This is Bob from Love Beyond the Sea. Welcome back to part 2 of this series called Earthly Ways to Have a Heavenly Marriage. We're just going to look at, in this case, I think one Bible verse and just kind of break it down simply into ways you can practically love and show kindness to your wife and be a great husband. And that's kind of the gist of this channel, Foreigner and Filipina Relationships. I want to help you to motivate you to find a Filipina and then know how to love her. And certainly in this series, I'd like you to subscribe and leave any comments if you have your own ways of showing love and kindness to your wife. It's not complicated. You don't have to throw yourself in front of a car that's bouncing on the sidewalk. There are practical ways to love your wife. This is part 2 of a 4-part series, how to prepare a man to love his wife in a way similar to how Jesus Christ loves the church. This is how to love a woman in a way that she will not want to break up that marriage. And this is how it's done. There's another series I've got called How to Earn the Respect of Your Filipina. It's shorter than this, 4-part, kind of similar, just kind of staccato, different ways to things to do for your wife that would earn her respect. And then the other video similar to this called How to Love a Filipina. So let's look into the verse that describes what love is, so it's not so vague and abstract. 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 8. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends or fails. The first one it mentions there is patient, which can be described as long-suffering patience. So just some questions that I get from this verse. Have I been patient with my wife? Where do I need to show more patience with her? Are my words kind, and do they build her up? Do I show humility in dealing with my wife? Do I ask her what she would like to do or talk about? Do I ask her about her day? Do I get easily upset with her over language or cultural difficulties? Or differences, I should say. Do I get resentful about helping her family out with money? Do I ever raise my voice with her? Do I refrain from using bad language around her? Do I encourage her spiritual growth and compliment her on her Christ-like behavior? Do I show enthusiasm for even small accomplishments that she tells me about? Am I encouraging her involvement with church? Do I look for ways to work through problems with her? When she disappoints me, do I have faith that God can change anything about her that needs to be changed? Can she see how I have made some sacrifices, albeit small, for her? Is she convinced my love for her will never end? And how often do I tell her this? Last night and every night, every day, I tell my wife that I love her. She says, I know, I've heard it millions of times. We've only been married 3 years, so I think that's a little exaggeration, but what she's saying is she hears it regularly, and I don't want to take that for granted. But you have to back up words with action, so this is what this series is about. So those are questions. Now, how about some examples I can get from this to apply in a marriage? For example, being patient with her learning new things, like how many cooking things, utensils to put in the dishwasher, or how full to load the washer or dryer. Something just like this that's new to her, I can get upset with and say, no, you're overloading it. No, it's not going to get clean. And, there may be things that she's not used before, and she might not initially use right away. And, I have to be patient. And this is just something that happen with us. It might be with making food. Like, no, hon, I'm really particular with food. I'm not crazy about that. And try to be gentle. You don't have to eat it if you don't like it, but, talk about the things you like and ask her to make food that you do like. And another example is teaching my wife how to drive. Got to be patient, right? And I did start off with helping her to drive in the Philippines with 12 lessons, but then she didn't drive for, 5 or 6 months before she got here. Then we got her involved again, driving course for adults. That was 6 weeks, and we were driving, and, I never thought I'd be teaching anyone to drive. And my wife wasn't used to driving around here in the United States, but it's safer, I think, and easier than in the Philippines. And we had our moments, where she got mad at me for raising my voice or saying something, and then she didn't want me to teach her how to drive for a couple of weeks. Excuse me, and then she wanted me to teach her again. So we got through that. We just had to be patient, really, with each other. Another example, I don't make her think I'm anything special because I live in America. And I don't make her feel shame for living in the Philippines. That's just where she lives. That's where she was born. She can't help that. I can't help I was born here in the United States after my parents immigrated, or I should say escaped from Latvia a long, long time ago. And this is where we ended up, and this is where I still am. So, my wife is the one I sought out. She's the one I pursued. She's the one who I am giving up my life for. I want to make her life better, so no reason for her to feel inferior at all. Another example, my wife is not a morning person like I tend to be, so this can create some conflict at times at night. So to help resolve that, I take a nap after work so that it's not, me going to bed 3 hours before she does. It's just something I have to do. An example of being kind includes helping her family, myself, and allowing her to help them. And still, we've been married 3 years, and she asks me, "Hun, can I do this for my family? Can I buy this or spend this on my family?" And I always say yes. I just want to know first, and she wants me to know first because I want her to know that her family is important to me. And it's pretty important to with your Filipina wife to care about her family. Not only that, but I want to know what they're doing back home in the Philippines, so I ask her how things are back home. Another example, as much as you are able, allow her to go back to the Philippines to see her family. For us, plane ticket this time, we're going here in about 5.5 weeks from today, actually, not the time this video comes out. And I think we got an all-time low, about $1,500, probably $1,700 if you count the extra flight to Davao. So, it's not cheap, but if you can help her go back, that's important. I also remind my wife that she is the best thing that happened to me, and she knows this after this comes after knowing God and becoming saved. After that, she's the most important person in my life. Another example, since marrying her, she has pointed out times that I am rude. I'm one of those rude Americans. And she's right. Not to make excuses, but I'm an emotional person, which sometimes makes it more difficult to stay in control of my emotions. And this can result in punctuating language with not so nice words, which can happen sometimes when I'm just irritated or angry. And it frustrates me to no end how things are more difficult to do these days than ever before, despite all the new technology. And I can rant and rave about that, but my wife doesn't like to hear it. I guess they don't complain as much in the Philippines, and that's a good lesson for me. Another example, apologizing for ways I have wronged her. I need to do that. And it feels good to come clean and apologize. Another example, we are all selfish, and marriage will most certainly reveal that. But as I, the husband, must take the lead to not be selfish by the grace of God. Christ certainly did not think of himself when he came to marry his bride, the church. Also, always desire her to be successful and praise her for her good qualities. And try to cover up the bad. Don't go to work or among your friends and badmouth your wife. Try to keep that between you two, but try to tell them about her good qualities. And I'm going to make a video about praising your wife. I don't know when it'll come out or when I'll make it, but I do want to do that one. So also, I try to compliment my wife even on small things. I try to routinely tell her thank you for the meals that she makes. I don't want her to think that it's obligatory. I mean, at lunch, at work, I'll send her a text saying thank you for this delicious food and what I liked about it. And I just do it because I think she would enjoy knowing that and seeing that. I don't want her to take it for granted. Also, another example from this verse, I should not expose my wife to any kind of evil or ignore something she might be doing that isn't right. I should protect her. My wife isn't really a problem with this sort of thing. Nevertheless, I regularly pray for her protection from any kind of harm or hurtful influence. Another example, telling my wife I am praying for the things she is doing, like learning how to drive, following up with her each week, and telling her I am proud of her, the way she's driving. Even though she's got her license now, I still want her to be safe. And I just try to be complimentary. I think that's very important. Also, telling my wife I was proud of her for persuading an old friend to go to church with her when she was still in the Philippines before she immigrated here. And she said her friend accepted Christ as her Savior. Another example, telling my wife I was glad she went to a 2-day conference in the Philippines. Anything like that can help her to grow, I'm all for. And also telling her I was happy she gave money to help an elderly woman that she felt sorry for. I try to remind her of God's promises to those who are generous and not stingy. And so I want her to help as often as she can because I want her to be rewarded for that like I know she will. Another example here before we close, trying to become, this is a little bigger, trying to become fertile since my wife wanted a baby and that was not possible at the time, and we actually tried. I wasn't crazy about this, but I really wanted my wife to know that I put her above myself, and she didn't ask me to do this. I just took the initiative. I could have said no way, forget it, put my foot down, but then I thought, the things I've been telling her, it would seem inconsistent if I said no, I'm just not going to try. Without going into everything, I was infertile, and we had to do some things to become fertile again and to try. And after about 1.5 years, it was kind of affecting my health. I had a male fertility specialist, the only one in our state that I was working with, and he told me, well, we might have to give this up because it just wasn't working. Twice it started to, and then it stopped. So that was a couple years ago, and as of today, even though I'm 56.5, believe it or not, I'm still thinking about that, giving her a baby. Fortunately, my wife says, yes, she'd like to have a baby, but she's content and okay and can accept if she doesn't. But in a way, that makes it hard for me to know what to do if she's can accept it both ways because she still wants one. So I don't know. That's just something I need to keep working on and praying for. We may make another attempt at that. And also here, verse 7 makes me think of Ephesians 5, where the husband is to give up his life for his wife, where it says bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. What this means is I do whatever I can to keep our marriage healthy and together. It means not hoping for a way out. It means adjusting to what happens in our lives and not having set in our minds that our life is going to turn out a certain way. We don't know what's going to happen, but I need to hope for the best. If things go south, I bear all things. I believe all things. I hope things can get better. I endure, but I don't give up on my wife. As Jesus said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. Now, when I was single, sometimes I would be asked if the woman I married became paralyzed, then what would I do? This question would always make me angry, as I thought it was an insulting question to ask. And what's the point? Do they think I am marrying only for sex? Do they think if that happened I would show my true colors? My response was to them, that would change nothing. My attitude is the same. I am to love my wife. Verse 7 and 8 of 1 Corinthians 13 are about commitment. I will have 2 more parts of the series that I think is a very powerful series on YouTube, very positive and something to help your life, help your marriage, help you to become a better husband if you use this information. So this is the end of part 2. Stay tuned for part 3 of Down to Earth Ways to Have a Heavenly Marriage, and I hope you can try this out on your love beyond the sea.